As more and more of us use the internet more and more, there are growing concerns about our right to privacy. When we're online, who's tracking our movements? How is that information being used? And how might it be abused? Donna Diamond reports.
Has Big Brother finally arrived, and are we enthusiastically welcoming him in? You can be photographed, named, and your location announced to the world without your knowledge. Your most private emails are being scanned. Everything you search for on the net is recorded. Every video you look at can be noted. A most intimate picture of you and your life is being stored to be packaged for the benefit of advertisers. And in case they missed anything, we happily fill in any gaps with helpful photographs. Privacy means different things to different people. Very few of us are happy to tell the world everything about our lives, our thoughts and our actions. And in a world where we may be doing exactly that, there can be consequences.
There's been some kind of scare stories, the likes of a few years ago someone went for a job interview, then sent a tweet saying along the lines of they weren't that bothered about the job but looking forward to a nice big fat paycheck. And then the person that actually interviewed them sent them a public message on Twitter and said, you do know I can see what you just said. People sending Facebook messages about being on a sick day and then it turns out their boss is a friend of theirs or their profile is public so people can see them.
But the effect of the loss of privacy on your current or potential employment is only one concern. The arrival of location software opens up a whole new range of worries.
If you're regularly using social medias with geolocation, so whereby you're putting information up on the website and it's posting where you've put the information from, well then people could use that information to track your movements or potentially figure out, well, okay, Brian is not at home this week, therefore his house might be empty.
So how does this work? At the core of it are the innocuous sounding cookies, text files that are dropped on your device when you visit a website, usually to ensure that you can use the site easily.
It has an ability to stay on your machine, sometimes for 30 years, sometimes for as little as 2 years, sometimes even shorter. What can happen then is that as you go to different websites, the cookie can transmit back information to the entity that dropped it in the first place.
But in only the last few years, the internet has made yet another leap. Phones are no longer phones, they are smartphones.
People tend to forget with smartphones is that these are not just phones anymore. You know, it's not the Nokia mobile phone you had 20 years ago. There are actually small computers in your pocket with very good and strong processing powers and capabilities.
Combining smartphones with handy little easily downloadable and very often free software has made our lives just that little bit easier. These software applications or apps help us find our way, help us find places we'd like to go, things we'd like to read, but they also can contain hidden within them the most serious threats to our privacy.
There's applications available for download today from the Android store, so that's a Google offering, so for people with Android platforms on their phones, which one of the permissions pre-coded into it was that they could read and edit your text messages, and so we had some interactions with Facebook in relation to their application, and only in the last couple of days now they've rolled back completely. We do not accept terms and conditions as a sufficient basis to collect people's information. You have to be upfront with people and you have to collect their consent.
When you're installing an application on a mobile phone, just as when you're installing an application on Facebook, the important information isn't buried in 5 or 6 pages. I mean, there are those privacy policies and terms of service that we need legally, but we've actually pioneered innovative solutions like a little pop-up window that says to you very graphically, we need permission for X, Y and Z.
The internet is meaningless unless we can rapidly find what we want on it, and one company above all others has ensured that we can do that. Google's dominance of the search engine market in Europe is huge, with over 80% share. It has even contributed a word to the English language. We don't search for something on the net, we Google it. And we use this massive processing power without ever having to reach for our credit cards. But we do pay for it.
Our model is based entirely on the advertiser pays if you click on the ad, and otherwise Google doesn't make any money. The publisher whose site you're visiting doesn't make any money, and so our goal is just to make sure that you see advertising that will be relevant or interesting to you.
But Google isn't just a search engine. It owns the video site YouTube. Its Android system is the basis for many of the non-Apple smartphones on the market. Its Gmail email service is one of the most popular in the world, and it has just helpfully decided that Google companies will have the same privacy policy and will all share your information with each other. Google says that this is to deliver users a better experience. Cynics say that it's to gather a far more detailed and accurate picture of you and then to sell that holy grail of the perfect target market to advertisers at the somewhat elevated price that any holy grail tends to attract.
In the long run, providing better services will increase our revenue, but it has nothing to do, it's not a direct play on advertising. It's making sure that people use our services and enjoy using our services more.
Privacy regulators across the world have expressed their concerns about Google's new privacy policy. The French regulator, on behalf of its European counterparts, suggested that it might be in breach of European law and asked that its implementation be postponed. The British regulator said that it was too vague. The Korean regulator and the Brazilian regulator expressed their concerns, as did those of the Asia-Pacific region. Despite that, Google went ahead on March the 1st and introduced the new policy anyway, in an action which some perceived as arrogant.
So we're confident that the policy is legal, and I should state that very clearly. And it doesn't include any sharing of information with new third parties. In the process of rolling out this new privacy policy, we had done the largest communication we've ever done to our users. We told them that this is what was changing on the 1st of March. And since we're confident that it's legal, we continued with that plan so that we didn't confuse people.
But the internet in general doesn't seem to be exactly quaking in its virtual boots in the face of European law. A new law brought into force in Ireland last summer requires users to be able to opt out of being tracked by advertising cookies. And the option is meant to be upfront and obvious, rather than requiring users to seek it out by going through numerous links on websites. But web companies seem to be providing a much more discreet opt-out option.
There's a privacy link on every Google page, but if you're clicking on privacy, we take you through a sort of layered approach. So if you click on the privacy link on the Google homepage, you're going to see general information about privacy and Google, and then you can click through to the more relevant information. We do provide, we participate in a scheme where we put an icon into targeted advertising, and that icon takes you straight through to the point at which you can learn about targeted advertising and how to opt out of that.
The EU plans to go further. Commissioner Viviane Reding has proposed a right to be forgotten. It's an enthralling and superficially appealing idea that citizens would have the right to be forgotten after a period of time by having information about them removed entirely from the web. But it isn't as simple as it seems, and it might have unintended results.
If you ask us to delete an individual piece of data or to delete your whole profile, we'll do everything technically possible to remove that from our servers. Where we feel less comfortable is the idea that somehow you should have a right to censor the things that other people say about you. And there I think there are a lot bigger issues for us to look at as society, the balance between freedom of speech and privacy as two potentially conflicting rights.
There are hundreds of millions of Facebook users. Billions of Google searches are performed every week, and new waves of web companies arrive every year. And here, above a Centra in Portarlington, County Laois, is where this incredibly fast-moving, multi-billion euro Silicon Valley of Europe is regulated from. There are 22 people employed in the Data Protection Commissioner's office, but none of them are technology specialists.
If we even had a small cadre of technologists in the short term, people who, as you say, have a deep understanding of technology and code and all these concepts which can be a little bit alien to people, I think that would be a good start.
But even with many more expert staff, is there really any hope that a government bureaucracy anywhere in the world will really be able to effectively regulate this industry? Maybe it's time we got used to a new reality. Perhaps privacy as we understood it is already dead and the genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
I don't think that privacy will be a concept at all, and that requires a huge shift in our understanding of how we consider privacy. But if you look at even now, the amount of information that's being shared, in a few years' time, privacy isn't going to be a concept, and we have to kind of get on board with that, but at the same time figure out things like financial, medical information. What do you do with that to protect that?
I absolutely disagree with the idea that we should give up on privacy. I think privacy is extremely important, and it has been important throughout human history. And I'd say that it comes down to three things, really. Trust. Consumers should make sure that they trust the company that they give their information to. They should give information to companies that make their collection and use of that information really transparent. And they should give their information to companies that give them control over how that information is used.